Ah, oxygen. Isn't it magnificent? I'm a big fan. But in the world of Subnautica, oxygen is in short supply. Well, at least down at the bottom of the world. Up here, there's plenty of it to go around, but down there our aquatic friends are suffering. Imagine having no oxygen. They must be in serious pain. So today, my mission will be to alleviate that suffering. I will take the surface's abundance of oxygen, and I will take it to those in need at the primary containment facility. But oh no, I won't be using any of that dirty recycled oxygen produced in an underwater base. That stuff just can't be trusted. Only the finest, purest, and probably the most polluted oxygen from the surface will do. Never mind that it's probably polluted from the Aurora's crash, I'm sure it's still better than that recycled stuff. So I will be building one air pipe all the way from 4546b's surface to the bottom of the world. To make this a bit more challenging, the only vehicle I will be able to use will be the Sea Glide, meaning I'm going to be in danger at all times, and I will only be able to take what I can carry. No fancy Cyclops storage for me. So all I have to do is not drown, build the longest air pipe ever made, and try not to be eaten in the process. What could possibly go wrong? First things first, I needed to figure out how many pipes I was actually going to need. So I took a little trip down to the primary containment facility to see how deep it was. My end target was 1,451 meters below the surface, and as each pipe is 1 meter long, that means 1,451 pipes, right? Well, not quite, as each individual pipe can actually be stretched up to 10 meters if kept in a relatively straight line. This means I would probably only need around 145 pipes, but as I will be taking the most direct route from the surface that I can, snaking my way through the Lost River and the lava zone, my ability to keep the pipe straight would be quite difficult. I would also need to add some more pipes onto the main pipe in order to be able to breathe and rest when travelling to and from the surface, so I was going to need a few more pipes to compensate. To set up for the challenge, I created a small base with 60 lockers full of titanium. This was absolute overkill in terms of titanium, but I didn't want to run out. Just how long was crafting all these pipes going to take? I had no idea, but there was no turning back now, and it was time to get to work. I had set my base up near the front of the Aurora at the border between the bulb zone and the mountain biomes. As found here, nestled between these two zones and surrounded by patrolling reapers, a gaping hole to the centre of the earth lay in wait. After crafting as many pipes as I could carry, I lined myself up as best I could over the cave entrance and took my last few precious breaths of plentiful air. It was time to place down the floating air pump and start building. Now, placing down individual pipes was actually quite quick, and it didn't take long to get a good way down under the water with my first few dives. Although, building straight down wasn't as easy as I was hoping it would be, and I did end up making a bit of a wobbly start. All I had to do was head back to base, craft some more pipes, and keep descending into the depths, and I was making good progress. That was until night came, and I'd severely underestimated how dark it would get just a couple of 100 meters down into the water. While I was building the pipe itself, this was fine, as I could follow it like a guide rope to and from the surface. The problem came when I couldn't find my way back to my base on the first night because it was almost pitch black. After swimming around for a while, like when you somehow flip yourself over in bed at night and completely lose your sense of direction, having to feel around for a familiar feeling wall before you trip over the nightstand, I did eventually find my way back. I placed down a beacon so I wouldn't get lost again. I also put one next to the pipe for good measure, just in case I couldn't find that in the dark either. I hadn't got very far by the time the first night had rolled around, so I continued building downwards, making the short journey to and from the pipe while crafting all the new pieces I needed. This was going well, and I started to descend into the cave below, which runs into the Lost River. And this is where I had my first real problem. Getting lost was easily overcome. This problem was not. So after descending into the cave, it was time to turn the pipe horizontal so I could follow the cave's descent into the planet's core. But for some reason, the pipe just wouldn't let me place any new pieces in the direction I wanted to go. If I wanted to go back the way I'd came, that was fine, and if I wanted to go left or right in the cave, that was fine too, but I couldn't get the pipe to follow the cave's path any further down. Sometimes the pipe would glitch out a bit, which would let me place a piece down, but there didn't seem to be any concrete way for me to replicate this, and even if I managed to get one piece in the right area, the next piece wouldn't let me move forward at all, so I'd have to remove the piece I just placed to see if I could find another way. I was starting to think I might be doomed, as this pipe wasn't going anywhere anytime soon, but that's when I had an idea. The pipe wouldn't let me go in the one direction that I wanted, but if the glitch only related to that way of travel, maybe I could build a pipe from a different direction and enter the Lost River from the other side. That way, if the direction I couldn't build in was consistent, it would be behind me instead of in front of me, letting me finally enter the Lost River. So after deciding this pipe was busted, I travelled to the other side of the map where I planned to go through the deep Grand Reef instead. This route would be significantly longer, but if it worked, we might just be back in business. I set up a new base and started a new pipe, repeating the process from before and building straight down. As I approached the entrance to the Grand Reef cave, I was confident that this time I would be going deeper, until I ran into the same problem. I tried placing new pieces from all sorts of angles to see if I could get them facing in the right direction for just a second, but the game wasn't having any of it. I don't know if this is a bug or an intended feature, but this was not going well. At this point, I thought the whole challenge might have been a write-off, and to add insult to injury, while I was topping back up on oxygen, a warper thought his claws would make a nice addition to my face. So it seems I was at an impasse. No matter which direction I took, the pipe would simply not go any deeper in the direction I wanted. Hours had now passed, and I didn't seem to be any closer to my goal, and this called for desperate measures. Maybe recycled air was better than no air at all. I abandoned pipe number 2 because it was way more dangerous than pipe number 1 with all the warpers, let alone all the crab squids that I hadn't even made it to yet. I'd rather take my chances with the bone sharks and the ampeels with pipe 1, and it was much closer to where we needed to go. Returning to pipe 1, I placed down a base piece and attached a base pipe connector. This let me position the original pipe as if it was feeding into this new one, making it look like one single pipe. Using this pipe connector would then allow me to build in the direction I needed. All I had to do then was place a power source in the habitat to give the new pipe an air supply, and for all intents and purposes, we were back in business. As a new rule, I banned myself from re-entering this base after I set up the nuclear reactor to make sure I couldn't benefit from the base being here. I also didn't allow myself to breathe from the air pocket in the pipe, as I was still treating this as one continuous pipe, just with some wizardry to make it work around the glitch. But with that, we were finally back on our way. With the old pipe feeding into the new, I could build down into the Lost River. I continued to build for a long time, as the longer the pipe got, the longer the journey was to get back to my base to craft new pipes. Then I had to use the sea glide to get all the way back to the end of the pipe again. At this point, I started attaching secondary pipes to the side of the main pipe so that I could top up my oxygen supply and not drown while going back and forth. Progress here really started to slow down as I was spending so much time travelling to and from my base. To complicate things even more, a ghost leviathan juvenile was stalking this part of the river, which resulted in a few close shaves, but we were okay for now. As I continued my build past dead reapers and the Lost River's exotic plants, I finally began my descent into the lava zone, which presented me with my most dangerous challenge yet, as the sea dragon guarding the entrance wasn't exactly friendly and my sea glide wasn't very fast. I decided it would be a good idea to scout ahead and make sure I was following the right path. The lava zone is big and it would be easy to get myself lost and build in the wrong direction. I located a small tunnel directly in front of the pipe which led in the right direction, so I continued to build that way, until again I ran into the same problem as before. I couldn't build any further in this direction, but after messing around with the pipe's positioning, I did manage to get it to keep going. I honestly don't know if this was pure luck or if I did something to make this work, but either way, I wasn't going to question it and I kept pushing on. I was now on the final stretch, but the sea dragons really did not appreciate me building an industrial scale air pipe straight through their home, and one even parked themselves right in the middle of where I needed to go, which safe to say made me a little hot under the collar. After managing to get past this behemoth, I was starting to close in on the primary containment facility, but this didn't mean I was safe. I was out of the frying pan and into the fire, as moving into the open area ahead of the containment facility, the beast's twin promptly turned me into a barbecued snack with a single shot. After gathering some more pipes and completing the long journey back down, I was now in touching distance of the finish line, but the sea dragons weren't done with me just yet. After placing these down and trying to return to the surface, this one chased me along the tunnel, and I only managed to survive by dodging its fire breath and hiding behind the cave wall. I calculated I would now only need one more trip to get me to my goal, so after healing back up, I ventured down to confront the final boss. As I moved towards the primary containment facility, I tried in vain to dodge the final sea dragon, hoping to sneak past it and avoid getting barbecued, but this didn't work. In a stroke of what was incredible skill and definitely not luck, I managed to hide behind one of the facility's sonic deflectors which tanked the fire breath and let me escape unharmed, and I now had a free run to the finish. After messing around with the pipes again, which didn't want to work for some reason unless I laid them along the floor, we had finally made it. This had taken a long time to complete, and to be honest, the mechanics around it seemed to be a bit buggy, but it was quite fun to use air pipes, which I don't normally use because of all the vehicles we have access to in Subnautica. All I had to do now was use the blue tablet to free our fishy friends from their underwater prison, and with their finely constructed escape pipe in place, they'll be able to return to the surface and live happily ever after. Wait, what do you mean that creatures that live underwater don't need air? Are you telling me I built this pipe for no reason? If only I'd known more about the creatures on this planet before I started building this thing. Look, if you don't want to end up like me, you'll need to watch this video next to learn more about Subnautica's creatures, and special thanks to my patrons, Asmodeus, Mathijs and SpinosaurusStudios for making this video possible.